Welcome, everybody. Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. I'm glad to see you here. For a lot of us, we're on spring break. Some of us are looking down the pike to spring break, so that's exciting. So it's exciting to be able to be here today. So people are coming in, and we're going to have a great opportunity to hear from some of our amazing colleagues who have some ideas to share with us for recruiting. If I haven't met you before, I'm Tina Peterson. I am the Southern Section representative for CCDA, and I'm excited to be able to share some thoughts with you on this important subject of recruiting. I'm sure, just like many of you, I have been concerned and struggling with how do I address this important topic when I don't even get to see my students, right? Some of them are at home on Zoom and some are here and some are only on Zoom, and all these different sort of hybrid models we have. And sort of we're missing that normal connection we get with our students. So it'll be fun to be able to hear some new ideas about recruiting, or refreshing some ideas of things like, oh yeah, I used to do that and I forgot about that. And so we're excited to be able to have that opportunity today. We have three awesome presenters that are going to be sharing with us, and we're going to let them share their wisdom. And then at the end, you're welcome to, while they're presenting, so say while Alan is presenting, if something brilliant that he says sparks a question for you, just go ahead and type it in the chat. And we as presenters will write down questions and then address them at the end. We just want to be sure that each of our presenters has enough time to get through the great material they're going to be sharing with us. So we will get to questions at the end. And then when all of our presenters have had a chance to share, we're happy just to stick around. And if you want to, if it's spring break and you're like, hey, let's toast some cocktails and hang out and just chat afterwards, that would be great as well. It's a big part of CCDA is the social connection and connecting with your colleagues. And I love the fact that I had this question, like, how do I recruit? How do I make this happen? I've been teaching 25 years, and it's like, I know what's worked for 25 years, but now poof, COVID, now what, right? And so what do I do when I have a question? I go to CCDA. I go to my colleagues in this wonderful organization, and I say, how do you do this? How do you do this? And then as an organization, we get to share out these ideas. So I'm super glad you're here. We're going to get rolling right away. It's fun to see so many folks that I know, and some friends I haven't met yet. If you're just joining us, I'm Tina Peterson. I'm the Southern Section Rep for CCDA, and I'm excited to be able to bring to you the sessions from Zoom to Room, recruiting and retaining our students during these COVID times. So thanks so much for being here. We're going to get started today with Alan Garcia. Alan Garcia is the choir director at Magnolia High School. Alan graduated from Cal State Fullerton and is in his 5th year of teaching. Some fun facts about Alan. He has to admit that some of his guilty musical pleasures are the Celtic Women and Cirque du Soleil soundtracks. So there you go. And I said to him, the best Cirque soundtrack is absolutely Mystère. If you don't know what that is, check it out. It's super fun. So again, thank you, Alan, for being here. And if you have questions while Alan is presenting, please go ahead, type it in the chat. Ryan and Suze will be taking those down, and we'll address questions at the end. So Alan, take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Alan Garcia. Again, thank you, Tina, for introducing. My name's Alan Garcia, and I'm from Magnolia High School. And I'm here to talk to you about recruitment and making personal connections in an impersonal time. I saw a post on Facebook the other day that said, is anyone else worried about next year's numbers? And it's a post that I've seen often from teachers, but that's always impactful to me to see in the comments, actually, and a multitude of teachers saying, same here, or yes, or me as well, or the amount of people that all feel the same way is staggering. And it's also strangely reassuring because it kind of sends the important message that we are not alone. We are all on the same boat, or rather in our case, we are all in the sea, kind of looking for a lifeboat to kind of get us through this difficult time, scraping the bottom of the pot for every morsel. I always tell the kids that I'm like Rose, and they are Jack as my choir program, just kind of just grasping on for dear life. And you know, as we get through this, I find that the biggest killer of the program has been uh, this kind of mentality of no mic, no vid. Kind of, it has been made it really challenging, right? Because if choir is all about bonding, teamwork, and family, how can we sell the idea of choir to students when many students haven't even experienced it or have begun to forget what choir is all about? How many of us are used to telling or having students tell us that, oh, I miss how choir used to be, or Zoom has made it so easy, but I still feel so lost or not connected, right? We hear it all the time. And even though we're connected with each other, we're also not connected at the same time. So um, what do we do about that? Well, I find the best thing is to start with connections, making personal connections during impersonal time. And so in just like Willem Dafoe is probably asking right now, this is how I did it. What I decided to do is to reach out to every single prospective choir student through a personalized email. Each email was specifically tailored to each student reaching out about choir next year. Prospective students, though, could be kids who have never taken your class before. It could be the incoming 8th graders, people who auditioned for you in the past but didn't make your top group, but were really close, or maybe they made the top group but couldn't fit into their schedule this next year. You reach out to them. But the easiest group I pulled from is the kids that I already have. And I'm talking about the kids that roll up like this, right? The kids that maybe are for 1 year and this is the year they got, and it's not really representative of your entire program. These are the kids that you want to reach out to. You know, the ones that make you feel like you're conducting, instead of conducting a choir or conducting a seance, it's like, Roxy, are you here? Those are the kids you want to reach for, right? These kids are the priority because they need the most personal connection. And we all have students who are very engaged and hardworking. They're constantly there, they're chatting, they're showing you a tour of their home. Those kids are fine, and those kids will probably be in your program the next year. But it's sort of like a vacuum effect, because those kids that are really active in your classes are kind of taking in that energy, while the ones that are not as active become more and more into the background. So some things to be aware of. As far as my program was hit pretty hard. So out of my chamber singers of 31, I was anticipating 18 kids to come back that were that are 9th, 10th, and 11th. So hopefully in my chamber singers the following year. And what ended up really happening is only 9 came back the next year. So the retention aspect was an issue for me. So that's half of my returners gone, and I'm freaking out, just trying to figure out what do I do in that instance, and wondering and asking the questions, where did those 9 other students go, right? So I decided just to reach out. I sent an email. This is just an email I took from that I sent to one of my students who is currently in my choirs this year. And yes, I know I use a lot of exclamation marks, but this student is currently in 2 of my audition classes, is super sweet, wonderful singer, and is one of those kids that was very active in the classroom, but not active online. And I have several students like that. And if you see in this email, I just kind of reach out and keep a succinct email saying, hey, just wondering what your plans are. Are you still planning on doing 2 choirs? Because the student was involved in my 0 and in a class in the day, but she hadn't signed up for my classes despite showing some interest earlier in the year. And so I just kind of sent this, shot in the dark, sent it. I didn't know what to really expect. And within 2 minutes, bam, yes, I'm still interested. I would love to be continuing in both choirs. And I did this with all 9 of those kids that disappeared from the roster. And after those personal emails, about 6 rejoined after that personal email. 2 of them couldn't join the chamber singers, but joined my 0 period choir, and 1 just couldn't fit it in her schedule. But it made me think, like, had I not reached out and sent an email, even though these kids are constantly coming to class, even though I do talk to them in the class setting, a personal email, for some reason for them, it's like, oh wow, Sir G is thinking of me, you know? some things to consider. It's okay if not everyone responds. It's that's totally normal. You're still showing kids you care, and sometimes they're just not there yet. If you get 1 or 2 kids this way, it's already a benefit, right? Something is better than nothing in times like this. We can't expect our finest groups during a global health crisis like this, or our largest groups, but doing personal emails has allowed me to reclaim a few to just get my choirs above the cutoff line. So I'm talking like 16 people ensembles, or even less in some cases. As long as we can keep the class, that's kind of my goal, getting kids in the class in hopes of rebuilding even as in the start of next year. Either way, a smaller ensemble is okay, a smaller program is okay. I do want to also mention that I've had more success with personal emails over email blasts, because if you ever look at a kid's email, oops, my bad. If you ever look at a kid's email, it's like 1,000 unread messages. I've looked at staff members' emails. They have 1,000 unread messages. Maybe even some of you have 1,000 unread messages. Whatever it is, just know a personal email we make time for, and that will make a better connection with the student. This is another email I have that I sent my students. This student is in my concert choir, so it was her first year of choir with me, and it was all online, so of course, very odd. Great voice, good participation, but also didn't the class. I thought like, oh goodness, like what do we do? So I just kind of reached out and said, hey, I'm kind of finalizing my top choirs list. I was wondering if you were interested. It'd be great to get you in this year. And just like my former student, she responded, kind of mentioned like she was honored that I was even thinking of her. And it got me thinking, if this is a student I thought would totally do it, but it just kind of occurred to me that she didn't really see it as a possibility for her. And so regardless of what choir they come from, regardless of what choir you want them to be in, reaching out has made a huge difference. By reaching out and asking, I kind of found out that kids sometimes weren't signing up for several reasons, right? For one, they might have just forgotten to sign up for classes in general, which is a odd thing, but it has happened. Okay, and what happens when students don't register for classes is they just kind of put them in whatever elective they think is best. So like wood shop, skydiving, grave robbing, whatever the you guys offer at your school, they probably put them in those classes. So reach out to them. Chances are, if they're not in your classes, they might not even realize what elective they're in. Some students are also aware that for some students, this is the worst that they've ever done. This is the first time they got an F in a class in general. This is the first time they've done poorly in choir. And some kids feel like because they did poorly this year, they won't be able to do better next year, or don't deserve it next year. But you need to let them know, no, I value you. I know this is an odd year. Join us, please. And some students think that their audition window is over. So let me go ahead and talk about that a little bit. So this year I did Google Forms, which is kind of like in the form of an interest form, and I kind of doubled it as an audition form. In this form, I list out the different choirs. I discuss what the choirs kind of expect, and I really just left it open to everyone. All are welcome, right? And the form covers the basic information, ask questions about the prior experience, much like they would as part of an audition form. And this is the very important part. Once they fill out the form, you email them and you follow up, because we're here to build connection. If you fill out a Google form and then you just kind of add them into the class, that there's a lot that can happen between April to August. So an email makes all that difference, right? And finally, for my audition choirs, I originally had a portion that asked for audition videos or audio, but I'll be honest, I was not getting a lot of response. I got some, but not a lot. So either I have a 5-person chamber singers or I pivot. So what I decided to do was just remove the audition altogether and just left it optional. I wrestled with it because I was nervous about not having an assessment piece for the kids. But you know, right now what I'm trying to do is just get as many kids into the door as possible. And for some students, recording on camera or on audio is just so stressful, they just won't even do it, right? And this includes even returners. So I removed it, immediately started getting more responses, and now I'm able to just kind of gauge off of a wider variety of of students. And honestly, next year when I have the kids in the ensemble, we can deal with that later. I'd rather for right now just getting the amount of kids in as possible. But every program is different. So in times like this, we have to modify our expectations to adapt our environment. I've been teaching online distance I will be teaching it the entire year. I know some other programs have had the opportunity to be in some sort of hybrid or in person, and everyone's gonna have a different thing, but this is what's worked for me. Now, but I always say you have to let go of the former program you had. There's no use in holding on to it. It's going to be different. Morbid image, I know, but this is kind of the mindset I've had to adopt in this time frame. Another thing, Google Forms also function as recommendation forms for students I currently have. So if students have a friend that is interested, I just have them fill out a form, and I actually give them extra credit for bringing in people into the class. Those students, again, were also followed up by an email. Again, not all, but I did get some, and I have a few more boys in my chamber singers. Hooray! We'll see if they match pitch, but at least they're in, right? And of course, you reach out to your junior high feeder, and you do a Zoom, and you do a presentation with a few gifts, and you make some connections, right? Building connections during an impersonal time. Once you have those names, you keep an inventory and follow up, right? And for some students, you have to reach out more than once, but this is a weird time for everybody. But remember that there's a lot of other programs that are thriving in this environment, but performing arts is getting hit hard across the board. So being proactive is best in this sort of scenario. Quick other ideas before I wrap up here. These are other ideas that I've thought of doing and just didn't have the time frame. My students had to start recruiting for classes as of January and into February, and I admit I was a little behind on the ball for January. So these are some things I thought of that I kind of wanted to, like making something handwritten letters so they have something to take home with them. I thought was nice. I've seen some of my colleagues doing student testimonials and doing recruitment nights. That's awesome. I'm not the best at social media presence. I think Ryan will touch a little bit more about that later, because as you can see, I have kind of a chaotic nature, and I don't know how effective my posts have been. I feel it scared a few kids, but gathered a few other similarly crazy people. But the ultimate goal for me to remember, for me to tell all of you, is that personal connections is what has worked for me to get more students back in the program. Final thoughts: less students in the program is okay for next year. Students that sign up for other electives, that's totally normal. That's okay. We are coming out of a global health crisis. This is kind of an odd year for everybody. But just remember that us sticking together is going to make it, it's sticking with your students is going to make it better for them and make it better for your program. We will come out of this together, and we will rely on everything. But I believe in you all. I know all the work you all do. Yeah, thank you so much. I hope that this helps you all.
Thank you, Alan. That was wonderful. And you are like the master of the meme, apparently, because the GIF, that was like so funny. Everything had this, I love the pivot. I could hear them having that conversation. That was awesome. So it's really wonderful. Great reminders, the idea that it's not going to be the way it has been. And we're going to have to allow ourselves some grace, and our students some grace, as we're all working through this together. I love the idea of all of the personal connection. It's the time, right? It takes time to do that. But that's what we need to do to build relationships. So I really appreciate you sharing, Alan. That's awesome. So we are going to have an opportunity next to hear from Susanna Peeples. Suze is the choir director at Granite Bay High School. She graduated from the University of the Pacific. This is her 9th year teaching. She this year was the recipient of our CCDA Early Career Conductor of the Year that was given out at CASMAC. So congratulations, Suze, on that. she has one of the most adorable puppies, her little shadow puppy named Henry Pupples. Since she's Sue's Peeples, he is Henry Pupples. And she is a self-proclaimed punniest person you know. So we're excited to hear from Suze as she shares with us some of her ideas that's worked for her at Granite High School in her years of teaching. So Suze, thanks so much for being here. And we look forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. This presentation is not super punny, but I will just try to be myself, and I think it'll work out. So we've got, by the way, if you don't use Canva, you should, and apparently it also does presentations. So here we go. My whole thing right now is really talking about a student-centered approach to recruitment and retention, and that it's I think it gets really frightening as teachers when we think I have to do everything. And so really, we should just move the onus onto our students to make sure that they're working as hard as we are to get people to buy in and invest in our programs. So a little bit about Granite Bay High School. I've been there for 3 years. This is my 3rd year, which means that 1.5 of those years almost have been through a pandemic, which is interesting. But we have about 2,000 students at Granite Bay High School. We're about 20 miles northeast of Sacramento. It's a relatively affluent area. It's one of the top schools in the Sacramento region, and definitely one of the higher scoring schools in the state. We have over 20 AP classes. We have an IB program, and we're on this funky 4x4 schedule. And maybe some of your schools moved to that this year, or maybe they've been talking about it. But it means that students take 4 classes in the fall and 4 different classes in the spring, which in and of itself means that I have 1 choir in my fall semester where I have everybody all together, and then in the spring I have another sort of developing choir, and then I have a chamber singers, but we are only allowed to have them for 1 semester. So that stinks, which that is part of the recruitment issue as well, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. My first year, just to sort of get some numbers, my first year there were 70 students in the 3 choirs there. In my second year, we did a lot of recruiting. We got a lot of people to buy in, and we ended up having a little over 100. And then projected for this 3rd year, we were supposed to have even just a few more than my second year. But actually, we lost 40 students due to, mostly this virtual academy we had opened up. And so students chose that to go online the entire time because our district, or our school board decided to do that, and we got back to school with everyone in January. We still ended up having students Zoom in, so we're still Zooming in sort of half and half, but the majority of students are on campus. And so we actually had 71 this year, and we've already gotten our class signups. We're supposed to have 75 for next year, so it's about even. But they're also continuing to offer this virtual program next school year, which will take away. And like Alan said, it is what it is. That just is what it is, and we have to sort of be okay with that. I think it's really important to just put it out there to the students that they know that everybody is welcome. Anybody can be in choir. It is inclusive and not exclusive. I didn't do any auditions this year because I figured I don't want anyone to leave my program, because a lot of times kids who don't get into an top ensemble, especially if they are an older student, will drop instead of stay in the program. So I figured I don't need to do auditions. The kids who really want to work hard are going to be in my chamber singers, and the kids who don't won't. And it has turned out to be fine because we're in a pandemic and things are weird. I think the idea is that all contribution is valuable. So even if this kid has a teeny tiny voice and doesn't necessarily contribute something musically, they as a person are contributing to the community. Before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to say it's going to autoplay a video. So this is our recruitment video that was all student run and student made. So I did give the assignment of record on Flipgrid what you love about choir or why you should be in Granite Bay Choir. And then I had a student who got all of the videos that my chamber choir had made and decided. So I didn't have anything to do with it except for the very end where I recorded my own little piece. And otherwise, this was all student done. And I don't know about you, but I like to micromanage things. I imagine there's laughter in the room right now because, and it was difficult to let go, but I had to trust my students who have been with me for 3 years here, and they know what I believe in the program, and they have bought in and believe in that program too. So here's our little recruitment video.
I'm Antoinette, and I love being able to learn and sing music with my friends.
It's a community, and it is a support system, which is really cool to have.
And the first reason I would give to join choir is just how welcoming it feels, You enter the class not knowing what to expect or anything, but everyone there just welcomes you with open arms.
You should join Granite Bay Choir because of how fun the concerts are and how great the community is here.
It's a family here. Everybody looks out for everybody else. We have each other's backs almost always.
You can build awesome friendships, and the people are just amazing.
So you get a break from your hard classes to sing amazing songs with amazing people and have fun while you get better at singing.
We sit and singing together is so much fun.
We get to sing lots of cool music, and that is super fun.
This is Miss Peeps, and we can't wait until you join Granite Bay Choir. So one of the things that I found was that not only did it help work for recruitment, but it also helped with my retention, because all of these students had to reflect on why they loved being in choir. And maybe it was, oh, I loved what it used to be and I want to have that again, or anything like that. But so many of these students, through that process of that self-reflection, decided to sign up again. And from my chamber choir, of the kids who were able to come back, all but one are coming back next year. Not that I credit this, but I think it helps for sure. So one of the things that I have decided was that we needed to divide and conquer. And the reason why I'm like wooing is because the student list is longer than the teacher list. Alan and I had similar ideas here, and we had talked about this before, but we did the same sort of thing where the students determined who would be a good fit for choir. Not if they want to be in choir, but anyone who would be a good fit for that type of community. The students filled out a Google form, which auto-populated Google Sheet. And then this was the important part. My student leadership team wrote a letter. I contributed a little bit, but they really were the ones who put the work in of these are the things and the reasons why you should be in this group. The students, and I've been in person, and so it was a little easier to do this, but I put room numbers and student email addresses into this spreadsheet. We were able to hand deliver a lot of letters to the classrooms. And then for all digital students, because we had 160 different letters to send out. So it was a lot for me to go through and type, hey, so-and-so, blah, 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 which is valiant. I didn't have that kind of time or that brain space to be able to do that. So I faked it using Autocrat. So Autocrat is a really great program to be able to use And I'll show you a little example, and I'll talk about it too. So here we have Tina Peterson and Chris Peterson at Tina Peterson is cool at peterson.com. Chris is also cool, I guess, at peterson.com is his email there. But Autocrat is really cool because it's kind of like a mail merge feature, but you can send these really nice PDFs there as we go through here, sorry. So you'll see what my sample letter looked like. And you have to put in the first with the 2 arrows there in order for it to work for this mail merge. But this is the letter that my students came up with. We had sample schedules, what you had to sign up for with all of the information, because oftentimes if kids don't have the information, then they're like, I guess I won't sign up. A QR code that went to our website. And as we go on here, we see that it'll auto-populate the first name to wherever the first thing is here. And then it has last name with that letter as well. It's going to go into my Autocrat letters folder. You can put it wherever you want. You can also do, it's going to go there. It has to share the document. You can put a different reply to email address if you want it to go to a specific email. And then this goes into the email there. You can also run this on a trigger. So if somebody does fill out a Google form, it can auto send them an email with what we're doing. So this is going to go here, and it's going to take a little while because, you know, it's a program. And then you'll see that in a second here, I can jump ahead to my email, that it created it. And then in my email, it said, welcome to choir, Tina. And then it has the email there and everything is ready to go. I had some feedback from students who went, wow, this is so cool, thinking that I sent them a personalized email. And I would if I had time, but I didn't, so I did not, but it looked like it. So one of the questions, or one of the things that kids always say is, but Miss Peeps, I don't have space in my schedule, which is a lie because we have 8 spots for classes, but my students are very AP focused and they want to take all of the 20 APs that we offer at my school, which boo. But I said, great, okay, you think you can't take it? Here is how you take everything, choir every single semester, every year at Granite Bay High School. So sometimes the kids just need to see it and go, oh, I didn't know that it was possible. Somebody said that I had to take 2 math classes or else I wouldn't get into college. And a lot of this is actually advocacy, knowing that we have to tell the kids what to do and help them to know that it's okay to take choir and you should take choir every semester. One of the things that I may do once the 8:30 school starts happening is I might start offering 0 period chamber choir in order to have my students all year round, which will free up them to still take more of those AP classes. And maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I'm trying to do whatever I can to get more kids to invest, not just be in choir, but also invest. So these are just quickly the numbers. We sent out 159 letters. We got 17 kids who signed up as a result. That's 10.6%. I'll take it. It's anything. If we didn't send out any of these letters, we may not have gotten any of them. And then we also were able to find out, which was really cool, and maybe you should check with your administration, your counselors. We were able to find out who had choir listed as a second, third, fourth through like 11th choice. And so I can also follow up with these students who have it as their second choices and say, why don't you bump that up to first place? But that's about the schedule, about the time that I have. I did want to say, I lost it. It's gone. There was something I was about to say, and then I got distracted. That's a likely story for me. So that is one. If you have questions later, I probably will remember it at the end here. So hopefully that was helpful, and that's what I got for you.
Suze, that was awesome. I know there's a number of folks who are like, what, autocrat? What are we gonna, what's happening? What's that about? I need to know that. And that's an awesome takeaway. And I also love the idea of reaching out to the counselors about the second and third choices. Our data administrative assistant is a genius, and she can pull any kind of spreadsheet I ask her for. And so that's also, that never occurred to me. Never once occurred to me. That's a really, really another really great point. So thank you. And boy, 4x4 block. I'm sorry, that is a bummer. But if anybody can make it work, you can. We have alternating block, and I really like it. But solid block, that's harsh. So like I said, if anybody can do it, it's you, Suze. That's great. Reminder to you before we move on to our third presenter today, if you have any questions or things that are occurring to you from Alan's presentation or Suze, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Alan and Suze will be sort of monitoring the chat for us while Ryan is sharing his ideas on recruiting and retention. And then we'll have time at the end to address those questions. So it's not that we're not answering or paying attention to your questions in the chat. We see there are a number of them. We just want to be sure each of our awesome presenters have a chance to share. So go ahead and keep popping those in the chat, and then we will go ahead and address those after Ryan is done. And so our third person today sharing about recruiting and retaining students and getting from Zoom to room is Ryan Yoder. Ryan Yoder is the choral director at El Dorado High School. He graduated with his undergrad from Vanguard and his master's from the Redlands. This is his 6th year teaching. Fun fact about Ryan, he's also an alumni from El Dorado High School. So he's actually the teacher from the high school he attended, which is kind of cool. And his guilty pleasure of binge YouTubing is videos of orangutans. So you ask him about that. That to me is a good question to pop in the chat. But we're super glad that you're here, Ryan. Thank you so much for your willingness to come and share with our friends here at CCDA. So take it away.
Well, thank you. First off, just a huge thank you for facilitating this, Tina. And it's a great opportunity for myself to share with such fine educators. And, I know you guys are like myself, probably the only choir director at my site. So, we need each other, and we need, this, and it's such an incredible, I've learned so much already from Alan and Suze, and I'm going to shift a little bit and have a little bit more of a focus on social media strategies and marketing for your program. All the things that Alan and Suze have talked have been such great strategies. And I'm going to talk kind of a little bit differently about, how you can supplement those great ideas and some kind of tips and tricks for both in pandemic setting and when we return back to normal. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Also, before I get started, what I'm sharing today is what has worked. At my site, I teach at El Dorado High School, as Tina shared. And, I think it's important to say before anything like this is, in actually messaging with Tina before this, I brought up, I said, a lot of the best ideas I've ever had, I've stolen from other people. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you today, yes, some of them are my ideas, but a lot of them I've also seen on other programs. So I highly recommend, as you're looking at ways to enhance your social media interface and presence, I would recommend following other programs and seeing what they're doing, because it's been so helpful for me. And also in saying that, some of the things I'm sharing today, they may not necessarily work for your site, but they may be something you can adapt. And that's definitely what I've done in taking ideas from others is that I've seen how that's been effective there. Maybe if I tweaked it this way, it'd be effective for El Dorado. And so it's important to know that. In starting to build your social media interface, it's important to, know who you are. And I talk about branding a lot. Our students are 21st century learners. They speak social media. That's their language. And, to be relevant and to, recruit and retain kids in any season, it's important to, have a good branding interface. And so, these are things I know we already have. We just now need to make students aware of it. And so, what is your vision? I know, a lot of us have different sayings, mission statements, and things like that. Making this something that, comes into your everyday talking with students, as well as what you post on social media. We have our logo, and that's blasted on everything I have on social media, just so that way when kids around, social media, as they're looking and they see that logo, it's like a target. Oh, this is a EDHS choir thing. I always tell students our big phrase in my program is there's a place for every student at El Dorado in choir. And I say it on every promotional material I can, and I have encouraged students to do the same. As you're considering your social media, it's important to have an ecosystem. So there's all sorts of different elements on top of, just having an Instagram or a Facebook. This year we've, utilized a lot of the things that we do on paper, now we've digitalized. And so, one something that's been effective for us is we have a great brochure that somebody on our campus helped me put together, one of our digital design teachers. Most of our sites, you'll have, teachers on campus that are resources for you, whether it be a digital design teacher or, I know some schools have those kind of offerings. So I made sure, every year to always make sure these are easily accessible for students with information about my program. And I provide that in counselors' offices, my feeder schools. I drop off in person, brochures, but also this year been just sending them these brochures digitally. And it's been an effective way. Our website, is not necessarily something students use. I think we all try to get our students to go there, but students, it's mainly for parents, I feel like. And parents are an important factor in recruitment. And also as far as your social media, interface, I always have, connections to my social media on my website. If you look to the right, this is an example of my home screen. If you're looking for a great, user friendly, I always tell people I honestly use technology for my own amazement. And I am the king of finding the most user-friendly options because, it as much as it's, yes, intuitive and easy for younger teachers to do so, there are still some things that are just hard to navigate. And so Website Builder I have used for my website. I mean, you may have found a different one, but these are just 3 quick links for that. And they're great linking up with your social media. I also have, spent a lot of time, working on digital communications, and we do a monthly newsletter every month that we share with our parents and students. And a lot of this is sharing kids' faces. Right now there's so much, obviously isolation happening within our programs. Now we're partially in person, so there are stuff with kids, actually doing things. However, if you're doing any kind of cool assignment, sharing that, if you have done a Flipgrid assignment, even just a screenshot of your Flipgrid assignments or whatever, showing that out, that gets them excited. Mainly on the retention side, this has been effective. And I also, yet again, here on the bottom, still keeping links to those social media connections. So social media, that's the background behind it and kind of how I have looked at my approach to social media with our program. And these are links to what our current social media is. But I found that there are really 3 main vehicles that we've used and I've seen commonly used in programs, and that's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for obvious reasons. It's so important when you're looking at what content to share with kids and to promote your program is to understand your audience. I've found now that, and many of us probably already know this, but our students' main means of communication on social media is Instagram. That's been the common, of course, TikTok as well, but Instagram seems to be the pretty dominant, medium right now. Facebook, not so much. I don't think I've ever had a student like anything on Facebook of my program. It's always been moms, dads, or community members who love to support our program. So, that kind of brings me to this next kind of portion of talking about, what to post. It's going to be different what you post on Instagram than what you post on Facebook. There's ways they link, obviously, but I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So as Sue shared her presentation, which that's another thing I learned, I didn't know you could do presentations on Canva, but this has been my best friend for like a year and a half. And if you're not using Canva, use Canva. It's incredible. Canva.com, it's free. Why I want to share this with you is if you're looking for, ways to create flyers or digital graphics for your social media, it provides so many templates for you. So as a new user, when I wasn't necessarily comfortable with creating my own content, they have templates and you can just slide in your content super easily. And, it's a little bit overwhelming at first, but after months and months of using it, now I'm at the point where I'm comfortable making my own thing. And these are just some examples of that. As well as to the left, just some, additional apps I've used over the years for content. So continue with my point of Facebook versus Instagram. It looks different. Instagram provides different capacities. So this is an example of an auditions flyer that I made. And one I used for Facebook, the one on the left, and one on the right I used for Instagram. Instagram provides, if you have multiple photos, it actually gives you a swipe option. I know some of us have probably seen this on our own social media. And so I typically will create a flyer in a traditional setting, and then I'll use Canva to break it up into 3 different portions like this. And then, it not only, makes it a little bit more, aesthetically pleasing for students, but it gives them that kind of extra effort of swiping over on Instagram, as you can see by this example where it says swipe for info. And then to the left, I still make that traditional flyer because ding, 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 Facebook, that's where mom and dad who know flyers, and even myself, millennial brain, I think in this term of, traditional flyer setting. And so when I do a post, I know it's extra work, but it's something you may want to consider for your own programs of, just adapting differently, Facebook versus Instagram. I think it's so important to share what you're doing in your classroom also, not only just showing things about kids, but what you're actually working on. And especially in this remote time, and parents, yes, they do have a window sometimes into what we're teaching now that they're in the houses with the kids watching our Zoom sometimes. I have parents all the time comment to me how they love hearing my singing voice every morning at 7:55 or 7 o'clock in the morning, 0 period. But I take time on our social media to share about, even just different, things that are working on in class. We had, for Black History Month, we did listening examples that were focused on celebrating the Black community. And I thought it was so important for us to share out that we were doing this with not only just our current students at our school, but prospective students that could see we're a program that celebrates diversity. And we're a program that's not only just producing music and a bunch of virtual choirs, but we're also doing our homework and learning the context about the things that we're doing. To the right is just, sharing when your community does something for you. It doesn't have to be necessarily as big as this, where we're getting donated a keyboard, but, when you have people in your community that come around side your program and help you out, especially during this season, these are things that, just help your street reputation throughout the community, and will get people talking about your program to possible prospective students or just people in the community that could help support and help you even develop your program further. Advertising, like I said at the beginning, this is something that works for us, but for other programs don't necessarily have the same resources. My boosters, I have a booster program. Not everybody has a booster program, but we've, kind of shift gears to understand that a booster program now looks differently than a booster program 10 years ago. And the things that they were budgeting for aren't always as relevant as they are now. And so with this 21st century mindset, we shifted to really allocating funds towards, marketing in our community. And so, in an in-person non-pandemic setting, we invested in, for concerts, we'd have banners out throughout the community. Did I actually think that was going to put, more butts in the seats in our concerts? No, but I honestly felt like it was, I know that I have potential students, for my feeder schools that drive by that street every day, and they'll see that sign, and how exciting, or even just a poster in a Starbucks or a local community, facility that they constantly frequent. So just a fun tip and trick there. This is just some examples of some forms some posters I've done through Canva, just to show you how awesome Canva can be. It's so important to showcase on these flyers. I did minimal advertising about virtual. I tried to show a lot of what we did when we were, back in a traditional environment, because students are excited to get back to what things used to be like. As much as it's great to show them what we're doing now, which I do have partially show that in my flyers, I think it's important to also show them what they have to look forward to. And That's an important element. Testimonials, I've been seeing these everywhere. I don't want to necessarily go into too much detail there, but just a tip for testimonials, if you're doing them on your social media, try to time them with registration. I use, my upperclassmen, my leaders, during our current registration time and audition time. And then now that my freshmen are registering later, I switched to, current freshmen talking to 8th graders about, their experiences as well. And just some fun promotional ideas that we've had, making your concerts exciting, even in a virtual setting. These are things that will get people in your community excited. And in closing, I just want to share kind of a golden nugget. This is not necessarily during a pandemic recruitment strategy, but I think it can be adapted, and I've done my best to it. But I always tell the story when people ask me about recruiting students for your program is, one of my heroes is Fred Rogers, and I had a mentor share with me, a very big piece of advice that's been very meaningful to recruiting and retention with students is the greatest sound anyone can hear is the sound of their name. And I always, we've all been there when we be out and talking to students and asking them to join choir, and their first thing out of their mouth is like, well, I don't sing. I don't know how to sing. I can't do this. I don't want to do choir. It's awful, and you try to continue to justify why they should do choir, which is important to do. But my one goal is always to get their name. And it's never the first time I ask them to join choir that they join choir. It's that second time when I see them on campus and I say, hey, Mike, when are you joining choir? And it changes the whole conversation. Mr. Yoder knows my name. He isn't just thinking of me as somebody to fill a seat in his class. He sees me as a person. And so, that's more for when we get back into a traditional setting. I too, did the emails to students, and I couldn't recommend that, anymore, that Susan, both Alan, pointed out. And that kind of also has that effect, taking the time to do a personal email with their name as opposed to just a blast is something really important. And I think like the others, I'm happy to, always be a resource. I kind of had to blaze through everything. I could talk for hours and hours about social media. It's like my nerd choir director thing. So please, I'm happy to be a resource. And if you have any questions for me or anything, I'd be happy to connect with you even outside of here on Facebook or email as well. So thank you guys so much.
Oh my gosh, so many wonderful things shared out, Ryan. I don't know about you guys, but this Canva thing, I've never even heard of this. So and you're all like, what? You don't know Canva? I'm like, oh, I'm old. I've been doing this 25 years and I don't know all the new young people things. So it's exciting to learn all these new opportunities. And then, I love that, Ryan, thank you for sharing the idea of, how those two social media platforms differ, how kids Facebook is for old people, they don't do Facebook, and just sort of understanding your audience, which I think is super important, and the thought that the parents have so much say, right, in what the classes the kids take. And so being able to communicate to parents that way. And alumni, I have been borrowing the testimonial idea that Ryan was talking about, and a lot of our alumni that follow our Instagram have been reaching out to me and saying, can I share my story about why it was important to me? And so I had an alumni that graduated in 2013. He had a full ride to the Air Force Academy. He's now working in Langley and on the East Coast. And he gave an Instagram less than 60-second testimonial that said, the thing that helped me the most being in the military is singing in choir. And then he goes on to explain why. The synergy of working as a team and noticing people's strengths and weaknesses and coming together has really helped him in the military. So it's been a really powerful thing. So we want to remember, if you have questions or anything, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I know that Alan and Suze and Ryan have been sort of monitoring that. If you have a desire maybe to reach out to these folks, I don't know, we've got some emails that are being, is it emails? No, Instagram.
It's Instagram.
Got it. Sorry, I just quick looked at and I got my old lady glasses on. We want to be able to get in touch with our three presenters. If there's something that you want to specifically ask them, would it be if it's possible, I know mostly in your presentations, you put your emails in your presentations. And this Zoom recording will be posted on the CCDA YouTube channel as well as on our CCDA website. I know there was some sort of kerfuffle with the second email that didn't go out until very recently with the Zoom link in it. So apologies about that. But this will be available for you to rewatch. And I'm wondering if our presenters, if you'd be willing to share out your email address with the folks that are here in case they have specific questions to ask you. I think that would be really helpful. Alan, since you've got your email address in there, was there anything in the chat you noticed a question that maybe you?
I saw a couple. I wrote them all down. The things that were there. Yeah. Bruce said that he finds it easy to get names of new prospects from current students, but no way of contacting these students or sending them personal letters. Any advice on how to find emails, street addresses, or phone numbers of students that have never been in my program? So at my school, we have Aries is our is what we use, and different from this school than my last school, we have access to look up any student's information on there. So that was integral to me being able to find these students. And so but at my old school, I had to ask the registrar for those emails. So I tried to just make it really clear of like sharing a spreadsheet or whatever with them of like student name, student grade, and then luckily, like I was very good at being nice to the registrar and chatting her up, and she was willing to help me out to get those sort of emails and other information for me. But yeah, it has to be somebody who has the power if you don't have the power, unfortunately. And then the other one, Sarah Norris and Anne Marie had asked if there was a way to access the slide decks. I can put mine in the chat. I have a little Google Drive folder of my slide deck, and then also the sample letter that my students wrote. It does say, "We're not a cult, we promise," in the middle of the letter, so I hope you catch that.
Kids wrote it, so that's perfect. Kid words, kid language, we love it. One of the things too, Suze, you talked about accessing information. Something that a colleague of mine mentioned, our middle school colleague, she goes, we also have areas, your student information system, and it varies from school to school. The students the 40 or 50 students that did not choose choir this year that were in choir last year, I can go back to the previous year's class lists, and then I can access, because they were actually my students, so I could access their addresses. We're not allowed to access students that aren't in our classes, but that's another tip that I thought was a really good one. My colleague goes, just change it to 2019, 2020, and I went, oh. And none of it's hard, but it didn't even occur to me. And so that was also another way to access information. Anything else in the chat, questions that you came across maybe? Alan or Ryan, and then we'll just open it up if anybody has a question they'd like to ask that they didn't put in the chat.
There's a question about somebody said, I know in sports culture, they recruit a lot of students through middle school sports camps and stuff like that. Do you know if there's anything like that for a choral setting? I know Ryan sort of had that on his presentation.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to type in my link. What did you?
Somebody asked about doing like middle school choir camps or something. That was something on your presentation, right?
Yeah, we do an annual middle school choir camp, and that's been super effective. And I mean, it's been a way to get also the kids on campus. Most of my attendance actually usually ends up being 8th graders who are coming over. It's been a big money maker for the program too. We don't necessarily charge anything astronomical, but it's a great strategy if you're looking at growing, your high school programs, is just simply offering those out. And I don't know about you guys. We're active on Facebook. There's usually every city has some kind of public group that there's always parents on there looking for something to do with their child. And the other thing that I would recommend if you do a summer camp like that, there wasn't anything in my district before like that. And so I kind of just took it as this, to start it off district wide open, and my district really enjoyed it because they felt like I was doing something that serviced the whole district. in all reality, it was something that helped entice, students from other areas of our district to, maybe be inclined to want to choose my school, as, their site when they're not necessarily zoned for that. So, and, you just get that face time with the director before that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great ideas. Any questions on just sort of, we want to open it up. If you have anything you want to ask or something that hasn't been covered. Jared says you have a template for that program.
Yeah, that summer program sounds amazing. I mean, I would obviously listen to a whole presentation on that, but I was curious if you had any, just like a sample schedule or any kind of information that you'd be willing to share.
I do. I'd probably have to dig for it. I could probably find a flyer real fast, but I'm very detailed on everything I do. So if you want to email me, any of you want to email me for that, my email's in the chat, and I'd be happy to send you that all that I have on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. All great ideas. Any other questions we want to ask any of our presenters today?
I do have to say just one thing. I'm sure you already have done this, but we were doing in the fall, we were doing like Zoom hangouts and Zoom like movie nights once a month. And oftentimes the kids would get on at like 6 and we'd say that it was going to start at 6:30, and then they just played Among Us for 30 minutes. And for me, I had students who, anybody was welcome to come, not just choir students, but they brought their friends along, and some of those kids did end up joining choir in the next semester. So even just like non-choir things to hang out, get any of those other kids to get in there. They love Among Us. They love it.
Apparently they do. Yeah. Well, it is past 6 and we want to be sure to honor everyone's time. You're certainly welcome to stay. I'm going to, and anyone else that has any other questions, or if you have, like I did this great idea, please feel free to unmute and share it. Also, again, some of us are on spring break and some of us are looking down the road very closely to spring break. And so a happy hour libation sounds like a really great idea. That's also something we do really well at CCDA, is celebrate together. So if you'd like to hang on the Zoom and just sort of chat with each other and share out ideas, I'd be happy to do that. This recording will stop before the happy hour part, and that part will not be recorded and put up on YouTube, but the presentation so far, we want to thank Alan Garcia, we want to thank Susanna Peeples and Ryan Yoder for their awesome information. It was so helpful. I learned so much. My brain is just spinning with awesome ideas. And so we're just so grateful that you're willing to come and share in our community. And again, this is what CCDA is. It's a coming together. I think it was Ryan that said we're generally the only person that does what we do on our campuses and in our organizations. And so we need this community. We need each other, and we need to share out our ideas so we can. It's all for the betterment of the kids and for the art form. And so I feel very grateful and appreciative to our 3 presenters today, and for all of you who were able to join us. We really love CCDA and love that we can uplift each other. So happy spring break to some of you that are in it now, and some of you that are on your way. I'm going to sign off officially of the recording and stop the recording, and then if we wanted to just hang and chat, that would be awesome. So thank you all very much. Thanks so much for being here.